Mesechta Menochos Daf Chaf Hey Amir Aleph. The Mishnah. Okay. Sagt the Mishnah. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah. Nicht ma hakoimetz. If the koimetz is the scooping became tummy, and that's now once it's tummy, you can't be. It's possible to be makiv because the komitz has to go. You have to be makiv on the mizbeach. Oh, and stam tummy. He's not going through with what kind of tumah. No. So he says, and nevertheless, he sacrificed it on the mizbeach. Hatzitz meratza. The tzitz was that golden plate that the Kohen Gadol had on his forehead, and that tzitz is meratza, meaning that it takes it out of the tumah, and therefore it could be used as a sacrifice, and the shirayim of that isarin after the kmitza you can eat. How about yatsa? What's if you took the kmitza and you went outside the azara? Oh, and it was makiv. Eina tzitz meratza. There the tzitz is not meratza. Shatzitz meratza latome. A tzitz could only be meratza on something that was. So the tzitz meratza depends where it's laying. If it was in mizbeach, it's okay. If it was out of it. No, it means even if you want to put it on the mizbeach later, but the minute he took it outside the hazara on such a psul, the tzitz won't be meratza. So he says shatzitz meratza latome. On a psul tamei, if it became impure, the tzitz can purify it. But if it was taken outside the hazara, which made it possible, it's called psul yotze, the psul of taking it out. Then he brings it back in. He cannot sacrifice it because the tzitz is not maratza. Taner Rabbanim Migalan. But I've been again to the tzitz. It says v'hoya al metzach haaretz. It says been again to the tzitz. What? Yeah, 1 minute. I'm reading the beginning of the pasuk. And so it says that it should be on the forehead of the Aaron. Now comes the words of the Gemara. And Aaron's going to, with that tzitz, he's going to forgive the sin of kachim. That it should be l'ratzin, it should be accepted lahem for the yidden lefnei Hashem before Hashem. So the pasuk teaches us that if the avodah of the carbon was in the over here we're talking about, let's say, Tumah, then the tzitz would be meratza. So what kind of a sin could this tzitz be meratza for? If you're talking about pigul means, here he says a different shot for pigul. Pigul means that the Kohen had a mind to spray the blood not in its right place, outside the Hazara, or to burn the Emurim, not inside on the Mizbeach, but elsewhere. Outside, so it's called l'chutz l'mkaimei. Has that to do with Tomah now? Right. So he says, if you're going to say the tzitz is meratza for such a aveira, for such a psul, that he had a kavanah to be mocked the day mun in the fats, not in the right place, chutz, outside the azara. It says already by a carbon that by a mock is such a carbon that somebody had in mind to be mocked achutz l'mkaimei lo yaakov. You can't put it on. I don't care if he's wearing a tzitz, it can't go on the mizbeach. So you can't say he's going for such a tzitz. The doesn't forgive you. It doesn't forgive for that. Now, if you're going to say it's talking about noisa, what does noisa mean? That he had in mind not to shecht it or to burn it chutz l'mkaimei, but he had in mind to chutz l'zmanei. I'm not going to burn it today. I'm going to burn it the next week. I'm not in a rush. Chutz l'zmanei, that's a psul that one who eats that, even if he eats it on time, he's chayiv kares. And so maybe that's the psul that's coming to be meratza. Says, but it can be. Harikvor nema. But again, is such a machshava, a covenant that had the machshavas pigel chutz l'zmanei. It says lo yiratza. It says this is only shmavilik werden. It shouldn't be accepted on the mizbeach. So you have to say, by process of elimination, that it can only be the sin of tumah that's going to be meratza. Now, why? Why? Because shehut mikol b'tzibur. Because tumah is not so severe. It's not a chumre diket psul. How do we know that? Because if the tzibur was tamei, we say you're allowed to be market for them. The carbon, it says tumah hutra b'tzibur. So since the Torah wasn't so severe with the psul of tumah, so it says if it's by a yachid, the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol will be maratza on that sin. Maskar Abzir asked the kasha. Oh, you're finding it because it's more lenient, so the tzitz is maratza. So I have a different sin. Ema Avin Yaitze. Say the sin of taking it outside the Azara, the tzitz should be maratza because it's not such a harsh sin. Where do we see that? Shehut Mekol B'Bama. We know in the time of Noah V'Tivin there was no Beis Hamikdash, so they were marking on bummies. So there was no such a thing as chutz. There was no Azara Kloyim. So there was no such thing as outside. So there was no Psul Yaitze. So the Psul Yaitze is it's not so severe. So maybe the tzitz is maratza on that. Amalei Abaye, what? Amakad says befeish in the pasuk, ledratzen lahem lefnei Hashem. What kind of a sin will it forgive? Ovin the lefnei Hashem, only a sin that's in front of Hashem. That's where the tzitz is maratza. Chutz, but it's chutz. If it's outside the Beis Hamikdash, it's not lefnei Hashem. Loi, so yoytze loi, because Ovin the yoytze is not lefnei Hashem. Masal Rabbi Lo, he says, let's say a different sin, which is, I'll show you it's lenient. Ema say, smile. It says he's looking at Krichlif and Gleich of that. Let us say that the psul was, instead of doing the kmitza with the right hand, he did the kmitza with the left hand, and that's a sin, and the tzitz will be maratza. Where do we see that it's a lenient? Shehut b'klal b'yom kippurim. We know on Yom Kippur that the kohen had to carry with both hands. The kafak teres he would carry with the left hand because it was much lighter. His right hand was stronger. So in the right hand he held a big machta with gecholim, with coals, being that this hand was occupied, so he was able to use the left hand for the keteris. So you see, the left hand it's not such a severe thing. It's not the end of the world. Very good. It says in the pasuk Avoid, it says when us naroin, honoring this Avodah HaKachim, Avin Shahayu Boy, Udechisiv, it has to be a sin like Tumah. So Tumah was a sin, and the tzitz took off the sin. Lafuki, meaning Tumah, even Tumah B'tzibah was a sin. But the Eivishtan Yemahu to B'tzibah, but normally Tumah is a sin to be makif. So, but Lafuki B'yom HaKippurim, L'Asher B'Smail Hu. Where did you bring a raya from that it's not such a severe sin? Because the Kohen Gadol was allowed to carry the left hand. That wasn't because it was a isur or a sin. L'chatchila is given as a mutter. We're looking for something that is asur, but the tzitz is meratza. Here, to carry with the left hand was mutter l'chatchila because he had no choice. He needed a stronger hand to hold the machta with the gecholim, the pan with the coals. That was a much heavier item. And his right hand was stronger, so that's why. So it was never usher to carry with the left hand the keteris. We're talking about that tzitz is meratza, something that's forbidden, and you want to bring me a raya that's still forbidden, but it's still going to be meratza, like tumah. Ravashi Yoma Avin Hakadoshim. Ravashi says Ravashi says it doesn't make sense that tzitz is meratza. He gives a different answer for the left hand. He says, don't bring me a right from the sin of the left hand. Because we're talking about Avein HaKadosh, we're talking about the sin in the carbon, in the chefza. You know what chefza means? In the object. This is the Rogatchover always uses the lashon. There's a difference between chefza and gavra. Chefza is going on the object, and gavra goes on the person, right? So he says, here we're talking about a sin in the chefza, in the carbon itself. Not in the sin of the person who's being marked the carbon. So you bring a knife in the left hand, that's going on the one that's being magdish. We're talking about a sin in the carbon itself, the tumah. So that's the second answer. Or the son of Ravashi, not the son of Avida, but the son of Ravashi said to Ravashi, say that the sin of the tzitz is meratza. Avoin balmum, the sin of mum. That if the animal had a mum, that the tzitz will be meratza in such a cover. And the tzitz will be meratza and it will be fine. We know that it's not, mum is not such a severe thing, because we find mum by Ephus it's all right.
As long as you don't bring a foot over.
As long as it's not missing a limb, it's not missing a foot or a head. Where do we see the Amama, Thomas Vizachas, but Behema, that says, Thomas, you need to have that should be complete. It has to be a male by Behema. But Thomas Vizachas by Ephus. But when it comes to Ephus, you don't need that it should be Thomas. You don't need it should be a Tomim without a mum.
Because you know the difference anyways.
Huh? Okay. And Zachrus. You don't need Zachrus by Eifes. That's why my son this year, by mistake, took the by Kaporis. He took a nekeva dika chicken for my Zoom. So I said, I'm not sure it's so bad, but just take another one. But because 8 times for Zachrus by Eifes, so I wasn't sure. I never asked it up, but it doesn't seem like it's such a bad thing if you by mistake. But I told him to go take another chicken. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Amalei. So Ravashi said to Rav Sima, Alecha Omakra, to take out of your taina the psukim, but the gay balimumim. It says befedish by a mum lo yiratzah. State befedish natei. We can't accept. It's not going to be accepted on the mizbech. He lo yiratzah yilachem, to teach you that it's not going to be meratzah for a carbon that any carbon that has a mum, the tzitz will not be meratzah. So the only sin that it could be meratzah for is only for tuma. Tanu Rabbanu Magulan. Dan shenitma uzirake. A dam, blood that became tamei. So it was tamei before you were mazik the dam. And then he threw the dam. The kohen threw the dam on his mizbeach b'shayek. So we say, hurtza, the carbon is still going to be good, even though in the mizuk, the mizuk is what mekabel give the dam. The tzitz is going to be meratzah. So he had the mizuk where he was mekabel the dam. Mizuk was the keli where the dam went in, and a sheretz fell, a dead mouse fell in. And then he sprays he did the zikah b'shayek, not knowing there was a dead mouse in there. Hurtza, it's good. But if he knew there was a dead mouse and I gave spitz and white in his way, then it's not going to be acceptable. But when these words said, becoming yochid, I will come and see me, baby, amazing. But when it comes to carbon tzibur, it's no difference if it's shaking amazing, it's going to be meratzah. We know a goy could be makaber carbon. Why? We learn it out from the extra word ish, state. Ish mi beis yisol umenageh by yisol asher yakar kabbalah. It says twice ish. One, the second ish, which is a yitur, comes to tell us that a goy could bring a neder if he made a promise or a nedava or charity. A neder he could bring on the mizbeach. But it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to be meratzah, loy hutza. It's not going to be acceptable. You know, there's only really the Ratzin and Mazin is the same thing. He only said Ratzin versus Oines. You understand? There's a chilik between shoygig and Oines. Shoygig means you did it by mistake. Oines, you didn't do it by mistake. The guy came over with a gun. He says, "Do it." That's force. Yeah, you're not doing it willingly. But when it comes to Mazin and Ratzin, that's the same thing. The only reason why he said Ratzin, bein beratzin, because once he used around the opposite of shoygig, which is mazid, so he wanted to use the opposite of eines, which is ratzin. Eines is against the will and ratzin, but not by ratzin and shoygig the same thing. Anyway, by goy, it's not going to make a difference. Leihotza. I mean, the fact that you bought akasha, astir amah hatzitz meratz. And what is the tzitz going to forgive? Al hadam, it says on the blood that became tamei, al basar, al chelav. On the meat, on the fats, shenitman that became tamei, bein b'sheg, bein b'meis, bein b'einis, bein b'ratzin, bein b'yach, bein b'tzibur. All of these, he put it on the mizbeach. It's going to the tzitz. It's going to be meratzah. We just said by a yachid, only if it was a shoygig. Shoygig means only if it happened by accident that he sprayed the blood, the tamei blood, then it's going to be hurtza. But if it was b'mezid, it's not. And here we say baby shayk b'mezid. How do we answer that? Oh, Rabbi Yisrael. You said like kasha. This is not a question. Rabbi Yisrael. The Bryce that says that the tzitz is meratzah by kam yochid, even by a mezid, is following the shita of Rabbi Yisrael. Rabbanan. And the shita that says that it's not meratzah by a yochid, by the blood, by a mezid, is Rabbanan. The Tanya that we learned in the Bryce. Ain't tomim in atomim al atari. You're not allowed to take off. The guy wants to be a chuligana. He has to give the kohen truma. He has toidike truma. He can't eat it. It's called tevel. He has to first take off the truma and give it to the kohen. So from Vasatarab, you know the truma, he took from tamidike chitim. The tamidike chitim can nicht or he can use vadlok. So it's the value is half the value. So if you want to be yeah, for the balabas, if he did a b'shegeg trumas and truma, then the truma is a truma. Aber b'meizid, if he did a b'meizid, ain't trumas and truma. His truma is not going to be a truma.
Is good.
If it's b'shegeg, it's good. But b'meizid, the chacham gave a knas. But I tell you, that's not good. But they gave him a knas. You knew what you were doing. You're giving him something of half the value. So we're telling you, you gave it. It didn't help. You still, you still can't eat it. Still devil till you give from the Torah. He says Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of the consonant. He didn't want to give a knas. Okay. He was a liberal. He wasn't a mamdani. Say, when did Rabbi Yossi say that you don't get a knas? So he says, you could say only that you heard that Rabbi Yossi says he doesn't give a knas on a ma'aser b'meizid. Why? That's what he said. Did he go so far to say that the tzitz is going to be meratza on eating the halakim of the carbon that were tummy? He says, oh, that you were making tummy, you could eat it? Who says he can go so far? But Tanya, we learned Rabbi Lezer is the one that says the tzitz is menatz on the food. Rabbi Yossi ain't not tzitz menatz al achilas. So the brayso that said that tzitz is menatz on the basel that's tamei cannot be following Rabbi Yossi. You wanted to say Rabbi Yossi says by truma he didn't give a knas, right? And you said so. That same brayso says that the tzitz it forgives on the tamei the kamit. That same brayso that says that Yossi doesn't give a knas to the one that took off truma tmeya b'meizid is the same brayso at the beginning of the brayso says that the meat that was tamei the tzitz is meratza. But you just said that according to only Rabbi Lezer holds that tzitz is meratza. Rabbi Yossi holds it's not, so it's a stira. I'm thinking about Eichel. You have to the second brayso do a switcheroo. You switch it. Rabbi Lezer he may not tzitz meratza al achilas. Rabbi Yossi not tzitz meratza al achilas. In fact, the mother really. So you're going to go and you're going to say Rabbi Lezer holds that the tzitz is not meratza. I'm going to show you so many places that Rabbi Lezer Feder says the tzitz is meratza. Where do we see it? Matzkel Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes is takasha. Me matzis afchas lo. Could you reverse the shitas and say Rabbi Lezer says the tzitz is not meratza and Rabbi Yossi says that and Rabbi Yossi says it is? But I would have thought basa or the meat of kachim shenitma that became tamei lefnei zika. Now before zika, nothing is mutter. Only after the zika is mutter. But here it was already asa before you even spray it. It was tamei before it. Says you I would have thought you chayav malayim that you'll be chayav kares mishum for eating tuma, for eating a betuma. It means betuma sagov. Tamalem comes the pasuk and says kol ter yechabasa. Every ter that will eat from the zevach hashlamim, and then it says v'hanefesh asher teichel basa mezevach hashlam asher la Hashem, and the meat that this person will eat from this tardical person that will eat from the carbon shlamim, v'tumasei alav v'nichras ha'nefesh ha'imah, and the tumah is on him, so he gets kares. So we see only when will you get kares? Only if it's after the zika, and the ta'irim meaning only hanitel ta'irim. Only if it's after the zika and it became allowed for those that are pure to eat it, chayab malam abishum tuma, and then it became tummy and somebody ate it, then he will be chayav kares because of tuma. But not if he wasn't able to eat it lechatchila, if it was never mutter to ta'irim. You're talking about it was already tummy before he sprayed it. Nobody was allowed to have it. But if it was never mutter for ta'irim, then somebody who eats a betumah is not going to be chayiv kares, because the only way the pasuk is saying that he could be chayiv kares is after it's already knitted to ta'irim, and then it was tamei and somebody ate it, then it'll be chayiv kares. Says maybe it means maybe the pshat is. Why do you have to say only if it was tummy after the zika? Why can't you say? I'm sorry. Why do you have to say that you're not chayiv kares only if it was tummy before the zika? Maybe you're not chayiv kares if right now it's tummy and the Torah cannot eat it even after the zika. Maybe if somebody eats a betuma, it shouldn't be chayiv kares because it's not good for the Torah eating right now. Maybe we should look at now. Maybe the is of kares, the is of non-kares expands even after the zika. Okay, so he says, I should exclude if it was stayed over after this manachila, or it was taken out of the mechitzas after the zika, that right now it's such a psul that the Torah cannot eat now. So we should say they shouldn't be chayiv if he eats a betuma karis. Talmud later comes the pasuk and says Asher la Hashem. Riba, the pasuk Asher la Hashem tells it limits it. It has to be such a tuma that was never, there was never a time that it was kosher. Meaning that Shel Hashem comes to tell you they're going to be chayiv karis, even though right now it's not mutter de l'tahirin, but since there was a shas hakoisha, a time that it was kosher for the tahirin, only now it became tamei. Somebody will eat it, will be chayiv karis. That's what Shel Hashem is coming to include. I would have thought it should also include something that was already possible before the zika, because by the beginning of the Aveda, before he burned the chmitzah, before he threw the dam, he had a machshava to spray it after the zman. And something that was left after the zman, says, it's the same thing. So he says, that the pikulin should have a din like Nesaris. I would have thought that the Pikulin should have a din like Nesaris, that he's going to be chayiv kares. Talmud lema mizevach hashlamim. It says of, not all shlamim, of miut. There's only a miut that of shlamim that you're going to be chayiv kares, and it's excluding pigul from the chiv of kares if he eats a betuma. Why are you being marba? The psul yotzef, it went outside, or it was taken outside the azara after the zika, or the psul of tuma. The psul of which one was it? Okay, let's use the psul of yotzef. Why? How do you know to be maba the psul of yotzef that the tuma happened afterwards? Maybe you want to include pigulin is chayiv kares even if the psul happened before the zika. Once the Torah was marba, right, and he also excluded where does it make more sense that we should include something that was kosher before? We had a kashus for the Torah and only later became tummy. But I have to exclude Pigulim because it never had a Shas Kosher. Okay, so if you want to be Maba, a Chi of Kares only on something that had a Shas Kosher. That if and then became Tummy and somebody eats a bit tumah, he's going to be Chayiv Kares. Not Lechatchil. And if you're going to say meat, let's look at meat. You said anything that never had a Shas Kosher is not chayiv kares, right? But we know the meat that was tamei already before the zikas adamim, v'achol, and he eats it la'acha zikas adamim. We know he's chayiv kares. Mipnei ma chayam ala mishum tuma. Why should he be chayiv kares for eating a betuma if there was no shas hakosher? It was tamei already before the zikas adam. Says the Gemara, we have to say because the tzitz was meratz the tumah, so it wasn't asur because after this it was tak asur, but the tzitz was meratz, and that's why somebody who eats it later is going to be chayv kares b'tuma. If a yachid eats it, says Gemara nitmal. If it was tummy before the zika, and that taka, the tummy who eats it, a yachid that eats it after the zika, will be chayv kares. Aber yoytze loy. But if there was the psul of yoytze, and the tummy eats it after the zika, he's not going to be chayv kares. Why? Man shamet loy. The ein zika me'eles le yoytze. How do we know that the zika won't help for the psul of yoytze? For taking ukatani, and we learned the menatza tzitz alachila. Who's the one that says that the if it was taken out before the psul happened before the zika? What did he do? He took out the meat outside the hazara before spraying the blood. He brings back the meat and then he sprays the blood. Says no, it's already also from before this meat because before this way. So who says that the zika won't help to make it tar? Rabbi Lezer is the one, and this is this brayso, and this same brayso says, but if he eats the meat, or when it was tummy before the spraying of the blood, even though it was a tumah already from before, it was never mutter. Who says it has to be Rabbi Lezer? Because in the same brayso it says, Rabbi Lezer says, if the psul was a yoytze before the zrika, and then he does the zrika and he eats the meat, he's chayv kares. I'm sorry, he's not going to be chayv kares. Why? Because the zrika will not help. Because the psul already happened before. So the zrika won't help. That was Rabbi Lezer. But he said that same case in Tumah, if it was tummy before the zrika, he says if somebody eats a bit tumah after the zika, it will help. It will be chayv kares. So you see, Rabbi Lezer is the one that says that the tzitz is meratzen. Not like you want to reverse it.
So why doesn't it get kares? Because the tzitz is meratzen.
Right. So you see, Rabbi Lezer holds the tzitz is meratzen, and you wanted to reverse it. You said that Yossi is the one that says the tzitz is meratzen, not Rabbi Lezer. And Rabbi Chizda, you're right. It's not Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yossi. We're talking about Lei Kasha. Oh, Rabbi Lezer. This brayso that says the tzitz is meratzen, even by a mezid, is Rabbi Lezer. Like we said, the tzitz is meratzah alachila. Oh, that's the first brayso that says that tzitz is not meratzah. It's not Rabbi Yossi. It's the abana. So you want to aim the shamet Rabbi Lezer. The meratzah tzitz alachila is the loy kanas mishamat lei. I understand. You heard Rabbi Lezer says that tzitz is meratzah. But where do we know Benegay the Truma if he was amazed and he took Truma Tmeya, he was matim Truma Tmeya to make it ois tevel? How do we know that he doesn't give a knas? The loy kane is misha matlei. Where do we see Rabbi Lezer saying that? We saw Rabbi Yossi, but where is Rabbi Lezer? Says yeah, we heard it. The same way you heard a shmua about Rabbi Yossi saying we don't consent. We don't punish. We heard the same thing about Rabbi Lezer. We heard the Tanya. It's a beferish brayso. Rabbi Lezer, truma. He says we're not going to punish her, even if he did a bemezi. He took off the back truma and gave it to the kohen in order to be able to. So nice, because b'datayt it's good. The mamish he could sell it, but he lost. It's half the price. In fact, you want to aim at the shamat le Rabbi Lezer betruma dekila. Say only where that did you hear Rabbi Lezer doesn't give a knas only by truma. Truma is not a harsh isur, but b'kadoshim like we're talking about, but the basa when that became Tommy the chamira mi shamat le. Did you hear b'negei kachim that we're not going to give a knas? Maybe we should give a knas when it comes to kachim. How do you know that it's not that he's not going to punish by knas? Says Yimana Imkain, this the brayso that says that tzitz is meratzah by a kabim yachid, even if he's amazing. Amad Ramya, who is going to be the one that says it? It cannot be Rabbi Yossi or the Rabbanim because they both say that they say it's not going to be meratzah. Rabbi Lezer is the only one that says it's meratzah. So therefore we have to say that even by the carbon, I mean, he cannot say, he can only say it's either Rabbi Lezer or the Rabbanan. Here he says, who are you going to say, we don't know of any other Tana that doesn't give a knas. We only know Rabbi Lezer is the one. Not the Rabbanan.
Rabbi Yosef also.
Rabbi Yossi also. I don't know why he doesn't say Rabbi Yossi. But the second brayso that says that tzitz is meratza by a cup, but Rabbi Yossi doesn't say that tzitz is meratza by a cup yochid. It was Rabbi Lezer. So by a carbon, who's the only person we could connect it with the most? Like Rabbi Lezer. So it's Rabbi Lezer. Ravina gives a different teretz between the two brises. There's a difference between tum'asai. Let me tell you outside, and then I'll tell you inside. There's something making it tummy. It's either you made a tummy b'shegik, not knowingly, you touched the sheretz, or you went ahead and you made a tummy, you took the sheretz and you put it on the l'chatchila. So that's amazing. So in such a thing, bein b'shegik, bein b'mezid, if he made it tummy, it's going to be hurtza. If he made it b'mezid tummy, the food, and hurtza, the tzitz is going to take off the tumah. But zikosei, what's if now we're talking about not it's tummy, but now he wants to take the blood which is tummy and spray it on the mizbeach. So if he does it b'shoigeg hurtza, so the b'mezid loy hurtza. So that's how he's learning the stira between the brayso. The first brayso that said that tzitz is not meratza is talking about by zikas hadam b'mezid that we said loy hurtza. And the second brayso that we said b'mezid it's hurtza is talking about not the zika. It's talking about making the behemoth chatchila tummy. Rav Shila says mam is the opposite. He says the which is more chamor, making the behemoth tummy b'mezid. He says it's loy hurtza. By zika it's not going to be so chamor, and that's how it will be mechal. Zikos b'meshek b'mezid hurtza. Tumasei b'shegeg hurtza. B'mezid loy hurtza. If you metamed the behemoth b'mezid, it's not going to be. It's going to be loy hurtza. By zika, if it's b'shegeg or b'mezid, it's still going to be hurtza. But by making the animal tamei b'mezid, it's not going to be hurtza. That's how it will be mechal the two braysos. You're saying Rav Shila says if he made it tamei b'mezid, it's loy hurtza. But you learn, he says, "Nitma." They made it tummy baby shake baby amazing. So you want to say the amazing? He holds his loyurtza, but he says by it's talking about the behema he made tummy. He says no, it's not talking about making the behema tummy. Nitma b'shoigeg, it became tam b'shoigeg uzerakai baby shake baby amazing. So that's how you have to learn. Toshma, come to Gemara. In fact, Ashar Adam Shenitma Uzirake. It says the dam of according to Avshila in the first brayso, it said the dam of a carbon that became tamei Uzirake, and the kohen threw it. So if he did a b'shegeg hurtza, but if he did a b'mezid lo hurtza, it's mamish the opposite of what he said. He said by zika, even if he does a b'mezid, it's hurtza. And the Gemara Hakikam Adam Shenitma Uzirake. It's talking about the dam carbon that became tamei, and the kohen had thrown the dam. Bein b'shegeg bein b'mezid. Well, if he threw it, then it's going to be nitma b'shegeg. If the behema he made it tamei by accident, hurtza. But nitma b'mezid. But if he made it b'mezid loy hurtza, it's not going to be acceptable.